Okay, good morning, everyone. This is Randy at Central Region Headquarters. We're going to go ahead and get started with this week's guest speaker series. And today we have Josh Sandstrom, a forecaster at WFO Duluth, and Jackie Anderson, a forecaster from WFO Milwaukee, joining us to talk about ArcGIS story maps and kind of the power of this tool and some of the really cool ways that they have put together information that they can share with the public and partners. So Josh and Jackie, thanks so much for joining us today. And the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. I hope that everyone can hear me and see my screen here. So let's see. So like we were introduced here, my name is Josh Sandstrom. I'm from the Weather Service in Duluth. Joining me is Jackie Anderson from the Milwaukee Sullivan office. And this presentation is basically going to be an introduction to ArcGIS story maps for those who have maybe never used this before or possibly have never even heard of it. And so this will be basically a demonstration of how to make a basic story map, show you some of the basic features, and just show you some of the capabilities that we have in a basic sense to just kind of get you started. So basically what we have here is the main ArcGIS story map page. But before I show you that, I wanted to basically show you what I'm going to make before I make it. So here I have a kind of a basic weather story or storm summary web page. I think many of us are pretty familiar with this. This is an older page from a June 2012 flooding event, one of our most historic flooding events in the Duluth area. So what I'm going to do for this presentation is kind of remake parts of this into a story map. So this is kind of a somewhat old school-ish map, but these are great ways to display just some basic information. But I'll show you what we did recently. This is a remake of this 2012 map, a 10-year anniversary map that my colleague Brian Howell put together. So this is basically recreating this map into a story map. So I'm just going to very briefly show you what it can look like. It's it's cleaned up quite a bit. It's a little bit more interactive. And I just want to share with you guys how easy it is to make some of these, because at first glance it might look a little bit overwhelming. It might look like, oh my goodness, it must require so much coding to make something like this. But it really, the story map interface is pretty easy to use, and it doesn't require too much of a learning curve. So basically what I'm going to do is start from scratch, and this is the ArcGIS story map page. It's storymaps.arcgis.com. And what we'll do is just sign in here. And this is something that anyone with a NOAA account should be able to log into. You sign into it very similar to like you would sign into Iris or something like that. So when you get into here, you might actually see this screen first, this ArcGIS login. But what you'll want to do is click your ArcGIS organization's URL, simply type in NOAA here, and then you'll click continue. And you want to click your NOAA CAC, and that's how you will log in. Now, since I already logged in this morning, it's skipping a few steps of clicking which certificate I want to use, or revert to your username and password and that sort of thing. So it brought me just to my main page here. But what you can see is this is the main story map hub, if you will, and you can see that I have a few stories already published. If you're logging into this for the first time, you won't see anything here. All you'll see is an icon that says the plus new story. In other words, create a new story. So that's what I'm going to do here is we're basically just going to start from scratch. And you can click start from scratch here. If you want, you can start with one of these quick start options that automatically starts with a more interactive template. But you can always add these in when you start from scratch. That's the way that I kind of prefer to do it. And that's how I will start in this presentation. So I just clicked that. We're launching the story builder, and here is basically a bare bones story map template. So what I'm going to do is kind of just start creating something here. So title for the story, I'm just going to copy this from here. Let's see, make sure I copy just the title, and we'll go ahead. I'm going to move this over. I'm going to paste this in so we have a nice title there. And we can start with a short introduction, and for that I'll just copy just a little bit of this text. And you know, since this is just a demonstration and time is limited, I'm not going to be able to copy everything from this old web page, but we'll just do a few things and show you some of the interactive features. But here's a little description here. Then if we go down, you'll see that my name is automatically populated from my account. I'm just going to delete this and change it to NWS Duluth. Say, since we're going to publish this as a public weather story, I don't want to have my name on there. We'll just say NWS Duluth. And you could use an office account to make a story map. That might be a good way to do it if you're just doing an office collaboration, say. But if you want to just use your individual account, that's great too, especially if you're going to do collaborations with someone from another office, as I'm demonstrating here. So I just changed that to NWS Duluth. You'll see that it says draft underneath. This is not editable, and this will disappear once we go to finally publish this at the end. So first thing I will do here after we got some text, you'll see on this web page we got this little banner at the top. Let's go ahead and add that in here, just so that we have something that looks a little bit prettier. So I have a lot of these images already saved just so I can quickly upload them. So I'm just going to click on this PNG and we'll just simply add it. So it makes a nice little background here. You can add different things. And there are different options that you can click for how to display it. You can display it for, you know, mobile phones and all sorts of different things. You can add an attribution. There's different properties you can add, like alternative text for those who are you know, impaired in different ways. So you can add alternative text, which is a great feature there. And I'll just click save here and just keep it as it is. So there we have some basic text there. Now I want to go to some of these design features, and I'll click on this menu up on the top. You can change your cover style if you want. So if you want it to look a little bit different, we have different options for that. I'm just going to keep it as this default option here. A couple different buttons we can toggle on here. One is navigation. I like to have that on because it allows us to organize things, which a good example is going back to this story map here where we have these different buttons. That's what that button allows us to do. And also adding credits along the bottom so we can give proper attribution for things that we display. So picking a theme, we got obviously a plain white background. That looks pretty boring. So we can change the theme to something else here, like title, say, and it gives it a pretty blue background. But if we click down here at Browse Themes, we actually have some pre-designed themes that we can pick. If I click Approved here, for example, there's a bunch of different ones we can pick. But if I click Approved, there are actually some NOAA, you know, pre-designed themes here that are, and these are really good to use just because this will get you through the approval process quicker if you're trying to publish a story map for public viewing. So I'll just click any one of these here, NOAA NWS Theme 2, say. Let's click that. And so I click that, that's the template we have now. If we go down, you'll see that this automatically has logos built in. So we got our NOAA logos and National Weather Service logos. You can see that in the top left corner there. So that's all ready to go and just nice and easy for us to pick there. So now we have a nice design. I'll click that, and already we have something that's kind of starting to look good here. So next, what I'm going to do is just start creating a story. And when you create a story, we just got this little plus button here. So I'm just going to click plus. When you click plus, you can see all of the different options that we have for things to add. You can add some basic things like text, buttons, and separators. And you can add media such as maps, images, image galleries, videos. And I'll show you how to, add a few of these features, not all of them, just in the interest of time. And then you can do some of these more immersive ones like a slideshow, sidecar, and a map tour. So just to start things off, I'll add some text. And then when you add some text, you get this this pop-up here, which has a bunch of different text editing options, which is somewhat limited for, compared to other things, but it has enough options to make a decent looking page. So I'll click this drop down here. We can add a heading, subheading, paragraphs, and some of these other options. You can bold your text, add italic, that sort of thing. So first, what I'm going to do is just add a simple heading. And the first thing I'll add is, I'll just call it summary information. I'm going to paste that in there. So we have that, and then I'm pulling this some of this from here. So I'm just going to copy, say, some of these links that we have on this web page to a few different PDFs from the flood. So I'm just going to copy and paste some of those links below, and this should be, I'll just add this as text, and I'll just use the paragraph option there. I should be able to just paste these in, and there they are. And in this case, these ones had links to the websites attached to them, and those actually copied over here, so you can actually click those. If you were adding text and you didn't have something like that, you could simply just add text, and then and actually I'll just do it as a demonstration. I'll just let's see, link to a website, say, and you can just highlight the text. You can click the link button here, and let's see, I'll just link this page. Paste, and now that one has a link there too. So that's a basic demonstration of that. Now I'll add a separator here. This kind of just separates information. You can see this added a tab along the top called summary information. So these are based on whatever headings you choose here. So there's that, and then I will, let's go to the next demonstration, and this will be, I'll just add text. I'm going to add a heading, and we'll just call this one Storm Summary. Let's see here. I'm going to try that one more time. So I just had to copy and paste some text. I'm going to call that heading, paste. Now we have one called Storm Summary. You can see that added another button along the top there. And I'm just going to copy and paste some more text from my other screen here. And this one I will choose a paragraph option. I'm just going to paste in just a basic description here. And then I'm going to show you how you can add an image. So this is adding just a single image. You just click media, you click image here, and then you can browse your files. You can also do things like, add a link from a website and so things like that. But I'm just going to demonstrate uploading it from my computer. So I'm going to go browse my files. I'm going to click on this one called preset map. So there it is there. It's just a simple GIS map, and just simply add it in. So just like that, it's added in, and we have a bunch of customization options along the top. You can change this if you want to have text going on to the left of the image or to the right, you can do that. Or if you just want to keep it in the center and have text along the bottom, you can do that too. And that's the option that I'll keep. And again, you can click on options here, and you can add attributions. Let's just say NWS Duluth, I'll call it that. And then you can also add alternative text. I'll just call that alt text, say. And then you can allow readers to expand the image. So those are some options we have there. I'll click save. And by doing that, it added this little I to the left. So it says NWS Duluth there. And then along the bottom, you can add a caption to the image if you'd like. I'll just say created by NWS Duluth. So that's just a simple demonstration of how to add a single image. I'll add another separator here and then add another text heading. And this one I'm just going to call photos. And for this one, I'm just going to demonstrate how to add a bunch of photos using the, this will be the image gallery feature. So I'm going to click on that. And this one is, very similar. You can just browse your files and upload a bunch of different photos. So in this case, I'm going to click on photos. I have a bunch of them saved here. Got 15 of them, in fact. So I'm going to highlight all of them. Then I'm going to click open. And you'll see, since I uploaded 15 of them, you can actually only upload 12 per gallery. So you can see that it uploaded all of them, but it won't let me edit the other 3. So if I untoggle one of them, I could add another one of these if I wanted, and so on. But for this, I'm just going to do 10 images instead of 12. So it says I've got 10 images selected, and I'm just going to click Create Gallery. All of these got automatically uploaded, and right off the bat, they look pretty nice, but we do have a few options we can choose here for the size. Right now, it's displayed as small. You can click medium, and you can click large. And I'm kind of doing this on a small square screen, so it doesn't really look much different from medium to large, but on a wide screen it would look a bit different. So here we've got a gallery of 10 images and kind of just a nice, easy, quick collage of images here. And coming from the old website, that's exactly where I got these photos here. And this is what they were displayed as here. You can see that these all have text descriptions with that. So I'm going to go ahead and copy one of those and just add it to one of these. You could add it to all of them as a demonstration. But to do that, you can just hover over any image, click on the options, and you know, here in this case, adding an attribution is basically where you would enter in a description too, just because there aren't a bunch of options. But I'll just put the description there, and then I'll put a dash courtesy of, I think this was Duluth News Tribune, so that we have both an attribution and a description there. And then you can go over to properties and add the alt text if you want to there as well. So I'll click save, and for this one, it added the little eye icon there, and you can just hover over that, and we have that little description, and you can do that for each of these other images if you wish. Now, if you wanted to add more than, say, 12 images, you can do that. You just have to create more than one image gallery. So I had 5 more images. Let's just add another gallery here. I think that would be 11 through 15, so I'll click open. We've got the 5 images selected. I'll click create gallery, and I'll enlarge these, make this large so it kind of matches with the top one. And so it does make a little bit of a gap in between them, but it doesn't really look bad. So that's a way that you can add more than 12 basically. And I think in most cases, up to 12 photos is probably going to be sufficient anyways. So you can add a text caption along the bottom of both of these, and I'll just say images courtesy of Duluth News Tribune. And that is a basic demonstration of adding a whole bunch of images. And next, I'll add another separator and show you another feature. And let's see, I'll add some text here. And we're going to call this one, I'm just copying some text from my other page here. Let's see, text. I want to do a heading. And I'll paste this in. I'll just call this one rainfall reports. And for this section, I'm going to demonstrate how to add a map. So I'm going to click on map here. Now, one thing I want to say about adding a map is the way that you actually would make a map is beyond the scope of this presentation. You would make it using the NOAA Geo platform. That's one way, or you could use the actual ArcGIS software. There's a million different ways to make GIS maps, and then you can upload them to this NOAA Geo platform, which I'll show you more about this site in a little bit. But that's kind of basically the NOAA GIS hub, if you will. And so that's where I created and uploaded this map that I have here, which I'm going to show you how to add to the story map. This is a simple map just called Duluth Flood of 2012 Rainfall. So I'm going to click on this. You can see I've got a bunch of different maps that I could load into this as well, just different maps that I've created and worked on. So, and you can see that these are just my maps. There's other tabs up here that you can click. They're like my organization, for example. So other maps that have been created by NOAA folks that have been shared so that other NOAA users can use them. You can add those in, and you can see all kinds of different ones here that you can add in. So those are other options available too. But I'm just going to add in the Duluth Flood of 2012 rainfall, just a simple map that I made that just shows some rainfall amounts across the region from this flood. So very basic. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit to this level, say that looks okay. Then on the left here, we've got a bunch of different features. First here, you have the option of toggling on and off different layers of your map. In this case, I just have one layer. I can toggle that on or off. I'll keep that on just because I have only one layer on this one. It's a very simple map. Map bookmarks, I don't have any bookmarks on that, but that's an option that you can play around with. Then we have some basic map configuration options here. Allow map navigation, search. Let's toggle on a couple of these. I'll toggle on a legend here, which is shown on the bottom left. I can click keep legend open. I think that looks good. I'll just keep that there. I'm happy with the zoom level I picked, and I like having the legend open, so I'm just going to click place map since I'm ready to put this into my story map. So there it is, and it basically uploads it, it places it in here very similar to how it does an image. So you can change the size if you want, make it large, make it small. You can do the float left, float right if you want to add text to the left or right. I'm just going to keep this as a simple large map. And this is now just a fully interactive map. You can zoom around on it and that sort of thing. And there it is. It also automatically on the bottom added in the title that I have, which this is very much editable if you want to change the text. So that's a basic demonstration of how to add a map to it. I'll show you a couple more features here before I pass things along to Jackie, but I'll add separator. Let's see. I'm going to copy some text here real quick. I'm going to call this one river flooding. I'm going to do text, and I'm going to make this another heading. We'll just paste this in, river flooding. And this one I'm going to show you is one of these more immersive and really fun features. This one I'm going to show you is called the map tour. So we have slideshow, sidecar, map tour. I'm going to show you the map tour one just because for this particular story map, it'll work pretty good. So for this one, we have a few different options. You can start from scratch. You can upload photos. You can start with a feature service. This one has quite a few different customization options. For this demonstration, I'm just going to upload a few photos, and this brings up basically just how we've uploaded other photos, browser files, and I'm going to go to navigate to where I have some of these saved. I'm just going to upload 3 of these just for the sake of brevity. So I highlighted 3 of them. I click open. We have 3 different images here that are ready to go. So now I'm going to click create tour. And here it says choose a different layout. We have 2 different options here. You can do a guided tour where it basically just goes one image at a time and shows you that on the map. That's the option I'm going to pick. You can also do Explorer, which is a little bit more of a free range. Click on the dot on the map, and then it'll highlight the image that you're trying to see. So I'm going to click next just to do a guided tour. Then you have another couple options for media focused versus map focused. For this one, I'm just going to show you the map focused option. I'm going to click done. And now we have basically some more work to do with this one. This is a little bit more of an involved feature, but that's okay. So first we got the first image here. We can add a title to it. I'm going to call this Carlton. That's the location of where this flooding picture is taken from. And you can add a description, flooding in Carlton, let's say, Carlton, Minnesota. So we have that, and you can add more stuff to it, more text, more content to that if you want. But and then you can also click the more options, and you can add things like alt text. You can add some different options here as well. But what I want to show you is how to actually incorporate this with the map. So along the bottom, you click add location, and this brings up a map option here. So I'm just going to zoom into where this picture is located. Let's see if I can remember. I think it's approximately here. So I'm just going to click to add a tour point right there. And then you got a zoom level here option that pops up once you click a point. Use map tour setting, or you can use the current zoom level. That's what I'm going to choose to use just because it'll hover over this zoom level that I picked as I zoomed in here. So I'm going to just center that a little bit, let's say. Then I'm going to add location. And now that's kind of tagged with this image here on the map. And the cool thing, although I haven't actually tried this, is if you have geo-tagged images, I think they will auto-populate for you that way. So, but these images are not like that. So I got the 2 other ones, so I'll just title those up, and I'll call this Thompson flooding at Thompson, Minnesota. I'll add a location for this one. This one's a little bit downstream, so I'm going to click there, and again, use the current zoom level, add location. And so you can kind of start to see how this kind of goes together. We got the first image here, and the second image, and basically doing like a a tour of the flooding from upstream and along this river down, going down the river. So that's what we're doing. That's what this one kind of I thought was a good way to kind of represent that. So this third image I'm going to call J. Cook State Park. I'll just say bridge flooding for the description, add a location. And this one's a little further downstream yet. I forget exactly where it is, but I'll just click a location roughly there, add the location, and there we are. So we have 3 images added as a little bit of a map tour, but you can see that the map background is pretty basic looking, but we do have some more customization options if you click map options on the top right here. And here you can basically customize some different things. You can click on this current location here and change that. The one thing I wanted to show you especially is just a change of base map. This is a pretty bland looking base map. Let's add in, say, a satellite image here. That's a little bit better looking. Also, you can change the point color. I'll change that to something blue, say, and then initial zoom level, you can change that from automatic to custom. In this case, automatic is a better choice just because those were the options I chose before, but you can choose, by a city or continent scale, basically different scales for your zoom level. I'm going to keep that at automatic. And so those are just changing a few customization options. I'm going to press done there. And basically that's, the bare bones of that kind of more immersive feature. So kind of from top to bottom, this is what it'll look like. You just go through your images and go through a guided map tour of these as we go downstream of the river. So that's a pretty cool feature. I like that one very much. And we just keep scrolling down to add some more features. I'm going to show you just one more as I'm starting to run out of time here. I'm going to add a separator. And let's see, this one I'm just going to call, I'm going to add text, add another heading, and I'll call this before, after. And this will be the one last feature that is just going to be this simple swipe feature, which really works good for before and after pictures. So I'm going to click that, and this is loads this little swipe thing here, which is neat. So all we got to do is add some images. You can add maps, you can add a bunch of different things. In this case, I'm just going to add a before and after image. So on the left, I'm going to do my before. So I'm going to browse my files here. Go to before after where I have these saved, click on before, and so this is just an image that I saved. I'm going to click add. So now we have that on the left side, and on the right I'm going to click add image, browse my files, and I have an after image. So we can add that in, and just like that, we have this nice little swipe that we can do a before and after. So you can see this is just a image showing a retaining wall that basically exploded during the flood, and we've got this house to the right, and if you swipe, this is what it looked like while it was flooding. So this is kind of just a neat little feature to very easily show before and after. And I'll just say in the text caption before and after, say. And basically that's that we made in just a span of like 20 minutes or so. We made a bunch of features here very quickly that look very nice, and we have all these different buttons along the top that we can click to, it's very neatly organized, let's say. So let's kind of finish things off here. So let's say we're pretty much done. Obviously, I could add a lot more to this, but in the interest of time, I'm not going to add anything more. So if I scroll all the way down to the bottom, this is kind of where you can finish things off. You can add a credits heading. Let's say created, let's see, I'll just call this story map created by NWS Duluth. That makes another heading up along the top, and then you can add your content and attribution tags there. I'm just going to copy and paste a little bit of text to add in there. Let's see, so I'm just going to copy that. We'll paste that in there. I've got another thing I'm going to copy, and we'll paste that in there. So just some basic text, see, this might need a space, but just some basic text, that we might show for the public. This is free to use by anybody, just cite the NWS, that basic thing. Add a credits option, and here's where you might say, created by Josh Sandstrom, say. You could add different names of folks who have collaborated on the map and that sort of thing here. So basically, we have created a basic story map with some really neat features in a pretty short amount of time. So now I'm going to show you how to basically go from, all right, this is the creation stage, to now we're going to get into, let's save this and publish this and share this with other folks who might be collaborating with this. So first thing you can do on the top is just hit the preview button. And this will just give you a kind of, how is this going to look from the public interface, or, so you can take a look at that and scroll through it, make sure you like how it looks. And here's basically what it is. You can click on the different buttons and test those out. And, so let's say I like how it looks. I'm going to click on the X button here. And so we have that. Now I want to go to publish this map. Let's say I'm done with it. It looks pretty good. So I want to click on publish up here. And here's where we have a bunch of different options. So we have sharing levels. You can keep this as private, so it's basically just your own creation. If you still want to work on it or that sort of thing, you can just keep it as private. Or if you really don't want to share it with too many people, or you can click and share it with my organization, and that shares it within all the folks that can see it within NOAA. So it's basically public, but only within those who have, who can log in with their CAC NOAA identification and see it that way. There's also a button to publish it for everyone, just public for everyone. You'll see that that is not an option that we have, because there's actually a more involved process to actually get this published for public viewing, which is what Jackie is going to share with you in a little bit. For now, I'm just going to share this as private. There's also group sharing options, which I don't have a group picked out just yet, but I'm going to show you that next on how to share this with another collaborator from another office. So I'm just going to leave that blank for now, but I'm going to press publish. There we go, checking for story issues. And oh no, we have an error here, content authentication needed. And I actually kind of did this on purpose. And that's just, I have an error with my my GIS map, the simple rainfall map that I put in here. And that's because when you're sharing things, especially the maps, you have to make sure you change the settings of those on who can view them. In this case, it's just a private map. I haven't shared this with anybody besides myself. That's why it's saying content authentication needed to share this with the organization level. So to do that, I would have to go, and this again is another thing that's a little beyond the scope of the presentation, but I'd have to go into the NOAA Geo platform and change the settings for who can see that. So for now, I'm just gonna click yes, publish anyway, even though I know that I have that error. So publishing your story, this will just take a few seconds. You've published your story, nice work. So it is published, and now what I can do here is just click on this little person icon up here and go back to my projects. And now you'll see that I have this new map that is published and saved, and it's ready for future editing, or I can just look at it and that sort of thing. So with that, I'm going to go to this site, which is the NOAA Geo platform. This is noaa.maps.arcgis.com. Basically, like I kind of mentioned before, the hub for all things GIS within NOAA. You can create things here, you can add things here, and all sorts of things. So what I'm going to do is sign in the top right, just like I did for the story map website there. And again, you do your NOAA CAC identification. So I'm going to click NOAA CAC right here. So this is where, in my case, I'm just going to do username and password to log in, very similar to logging into Iris or other sites like that. And basically here we have a whole bunch of different options. And so first thing I'll demonstrate is just the content tab. And this here you'll see is just where I have a whole bunch of different things saved that I've been working on. So you can see I've got all kinds of story maps saved. I've got feature layers, shape files, just all kinds of different GIS-y type things that I've been working on there. But the last thing I wanted to demonstrate is creating a group so that you can work on these projects with other collaborators. And so you click on that group tab, and you can see that I already have a few different groups for different things here. But if I want to create a new group, say this is, just a brand new thing, I'm going to click on this plus create group right here. And when you click on this, you can just add a few different options. I'm going to call this, for a name, I'll call it Duluth 2012 flood. And then I'll just, in the summary, you could do something a little bit more involved. I'll just say that Duluth 2012 flood right there. And let's see. Yeah, so I'm going to do that. I'll do that. And you can add some tags if you want. So 2012 flood Duluth, let's say. And yeah, so we got that. And then you can add an image if you'd like. You can go down here where we have some more options, which is group membership, which is basically who are you going to add? What are the permissions going to be of this group? So who can view this group? I'm just going to click only group members because I'm going to share this group with, I'm going to create this group with just one other member, which is going to be Jackie. And you can do all organizations, which would make it more, viewable from all of NOAA, that sort of thing. Who can be in this group? Just my organization's member, just my organization's members only. How can people join this group? This one, we only have one option, by invitation. Who can contribute content? All group members. So I'm just going to leave some of those as they are, and I'm going to click save. And here I created a new group. So let's say I want to invite a user. I'm going to invite a user, and this is pretty nice. I want to add Jackie to this group because we're going to pretend like this is a collaborative project. So I'm going to search for her name right up here. And so it basically just searches through different NOAA accounts. Hers is right here. I'm going to click on that. So I clicked it, add members to group. So she is now added to the group. But now we have a shared group, but let's add an item to the group, which will be the flood project right here. So I'm just adding that, and here you can click through all the different projects that you have saved within your in your ArcGIS portfolio. So here on the top, the most recent one I created is the 2012 flood story map. So I'm going to check that box, add items, and successfully added item to group. So now I have a group, and I have the project, and now Jackie should be able to log into her account and see this and collaborate with it. And at this time, I'm going to pass things over to Jackie so she can demonstrate that. And hopefully it works, and yeah, we'll pass things over.
All right, thank you, Josh. Let me just double check and make sure my screen is shared. Awesome. Okay, so now that Josh has added me to the group, this is my NOAA Geo platform space after I've already kind of logged in. You'll see I have a little Taco Bell alert. And so this is alerting me to tell me that I've been added to a new group. So I can click on this Duluth 2012 flood group, and I can directly open the story map that we just worked on. And then I can also go in there and kind of edit and tweak stuff as well, which is a really cool way to collaborate with neighboring offices or other people in your office or across the region on some of these story maps. So that is a great demonstration on how to share these story maps and create groups so that we can collaborate more easily on these projects. So that was a really great demonstration. Thank you, Josh. I'm going to get into more of the content and the publishing side of things. And we are going to talk a little bit about what goes into the story map, what requirements there are, and how you publish it. Now, I will preface this presentation with, when we were putting this together, I reached out to the folks who are in charge or tasked with actually reviewing these to make them publicly available. And so some of this content we've kind of talked about back and forth to make sure that we're kind of emphasizing some of the more important stuff. So first and foremost, there's this, I think there's always this kind of debate, like, is it top news worthy? Is it story map worthy? So one thing to remember, like Josh demonstrated, the the publicly available setting, we have to go through a review process here in Central Region. And so anything that you're trying to get out immediately for your partners, for the media, the top news articles or top news write-ups, stories, whatever you want to call them, is really going to be the best avenue to get that information out quickly if people need information. But if you're looking at more of the GIS capabilities of mapping data or looking at historical reviews of bigger events, and you have time to kind of perfect the story map, make it look nice. Josh put that demonstration together in 20 to 30 minutes, but it takes a lot of time to get it right and to get it looking nice. So if you have the time and you're not time crunched, then the story map definitely may be the route to go, especially if you're looking at more of those interactive GIS capabilities. But if it's information that needs to get out as soon as possible, those top news write-ups, articles, top news stories are going to be probably the better avenue in the short term of things. And there is a documentation that has the requirements for public content. So again, anytime you put together a story map, you have to submit a trouble ticket, which we'll get to publish that content publicly. And so in order to do that, there are requirements that have to be met when it comes to the content that's in the story map. And now this is information pulled straight from the requirements document, but you can definitely, I encourage anybody before they make a story map to review that documentation. It's really, really important, and it will save you time when you're in the review process as well. So first and foremost, data cannot contain any personal identifiable information. It has to be classified as low impact for confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Data must either have a link to a data source hosted on a public NOAA website or server or other federal or state agency. So essentially, we want to try and make sure that the information we're pushing out on these story maps are also available elsewhere to the public. And then also, this goes along the lines with any kind of social media stuff we do, any kind of top news stories we do. The data has to be in compliance with any other existing line office directives or policies that are already in place when it comes to sharing data publicly as well. And also, we want to make sure that we don't have any restrictions on the data that we're sharing. Now, I'm going to demonstrate here in a couple of slides what this item's detail page is. So Josh put together all of this great content for that review. Now there is some metadata that has to go into the story map as well. So there has to be a title of the page, a thumbnail, a summary, description. Terms of use are optional, tags, and then some credits. And we'll go through, I'll show you what those kind of look like here in a little bit. Another one thing that the folks who are in charge of reviewing these story maps wanted me to emphasize is, and this comes straight from the Central Region Services documentation, copyright. We need to make sure we're keeping this in the back of our mind with everything. We have to make sure that we have permission to share stuff that are not our information, are not our photos, videos. So please, before you start downloading stuff about an event from social media to share out, make sure that we're getting permissions to use this stuff in the story map so we don't cause a headache down the road. So again, just always keep that in mind. We do have a couple of websites. The IEM Cow website, the Iowa Environmental Mesonet site, has a great disclaimer page that pretty much says the materials found on this website are public domain, may be used freely. So if you're on a website that's not a weather service, a NOAA website, I know a lot of us, I personally love this page. It's a great page to go and get really cool stats and information from. But if you're on a website, a third-party website that does not have a disclaimer like this, you really have to be using NOAA or government sources, or you need to make sure that you're getting permission to use the data, photos, or videos beforehand. So a couple quick notes on the content side of things. Again, when we're using photos or videos, make sure you have permission. Make sure you're giving the proper credit. Sometimes less is more, longer is not always better. You may want to try to limit your story map to about 3 to 5 tabs or different sections within your story map. If your story map if it's a really complex event, you may need to consider breaking the event up into a couple of different story maps. And if we have some time, I have an example of what that might look like. And ask yourself, this is something I always do before posting to social media with any kind of weather stories or nowcast graphics. So the same thing applies for story maps. Ask yourself, if this was not your story map, how long would you be willing to read on through the content? So keep that in mind when it comes to sometimes trying to keep the wordiness down a little bit if possible. Avoiding the acronyms, if you have to use them, I know we have a lot of them, but just make sure you define them. When it comes to spell check and grammar, this is something that the folks who are reviewing the story maps are going to be looking at as well. I highly recommend either formulating your content beforehand, maybe in a Google Doc or a Word document, plan out your content, make sure you have, you're getting the spell checking and the grammar right on that side, and then simply copy and paste it into the story map. Or if you want to do vice versa, copy and paste the content out of your story map into an avenue that can actually spell check and look at that stuff, because unfortunately the story maps, they don't have the spell check features in there. So that's a really quick way to get a lot of typos if you're typing fast, or if you're like me and some of these typos kind of sneak into your stuff. So then there's also these websites where, and it's really cool, this is something I just kind of found out about, where you can actually paste your content into a website generator that will look at what your content says, and it will tell you how complex it is, how understandable it is. And so that's a really great way to see if maybe your story map is way too technical for the public. And so there are some options online for that as well. Make sure you check all of your links. So if you're embedding links like Josh embedded those those PDF links, make sure they all work. I know sometimes, links, websites disappear, or, we take links off of our top news articles or whatnot. So just make sure that all of the links work beforehand. And then the scope, speak to your area. If your scope is bigger, so kind of like what Josh and I are demonstrating here with this process, seek input from region. Again, there are some folks who are tasked with reviewing these data and can help kind of get you some help with your story map, or if it needs to be expanded across multiple different offices. Don't be afraid to reach out to your neighboring offices as well to collaborate on these things. So now we're going to talk a little bit, go back to this items detail page. And this is essentially the metadata behind your story map. And so again, this is that NOAA Geo Platform page. So I'm going to click on, and again, I'm just going to demonstrate this in the PowerPoint, but we're going to go to the content option and say we're going to navigate to active early August. This was a story map about last August across southern Wisconsin, primarily impacting the Milwaukee County warning area. So I'm going to navigate to within my content. I'm going to navigate to the active early August story map. Now I'm going to show you what's all in the items detail page. And so these are things that have to be in the metadata before it can be approved. So there's the title right up front. We have to have a thumbnail, something that can kind of quickly draw attention to the event. So a great picture from the story map. We have the summary. Now the cool part about the summary is the content that you put right into the title page on the story map will kind of auto link back into the summary here. So it's really kind of trying to save you time as well. Then there's a description, a quick description of the event. And again, this will kind of link back. It should link back from the actual story map. So we're kind of, when you're working on the story map, trying to backfill in some of this metadata. So some of it may be there, but some of it you may still need to add. There's going to be the terms of use. Again, this is optional. And this one, we pretty much said, if you're going to share this, please just provide credit to the Weather Forecast Office. Then if you scroll down on that same page, it's going to be all in one page. You can add tags. Now, it's recommended that you have 3 or 4 tags to make it more discoverable, especially in the AGOL platform. So with this one, we have severe weather, Wisconsin, National Weather Service, and NOAA. And then within the credit section or the attribution, you really should have a list of all the information that's being used within the story map. And within the requirements documentation, it has some examples on how to list that information out. Now, at the very bottom of the items detail page, at the very bottom, once you publish things to the organization, that means everyone within the organization can see it. And that means we're finally, getting closer to hopefully submitting a trouble ticket to get things published publicly. So this is one location, the URL at the very bottom. That is one location where you can go to grab the actual link for the story map that will eventually, hopefully, be made public. So now that we have our story map ready to go, we've looked at the review, the contents, requirements, documents, where everything looks good. Now it's time to publish the story map. And so I have the actual URL kind of listed out here for those who maybe review this later or want to kind of jot that down. So within this GIS support platform, we're going to submit a trouble ticket to have our content published publicly. So we're going to click on submit a request, and then we're going to get a new page that pops up, and there's a couple different categories on the left here. We want the NOAA Geo Platform AGOL option, and then we're going to do publish content publicly. And now you're going to be brought to this trouble ticket, submit a ticket option for publishing content. So one thing at the very top I want to make sure to emphasize, because Josh demonstrated a story map and then a map within, and then maybe even some data that all need to be turned on publicly. So at the very top of this publish content publicly ticket you're going to submit, it has in here, if you're making several items public, please place them all into a folder under your content so the admins know exactly what needs to be reviewed and what needs to be made public. And so this is a screenshot of our account, the Milwaukee's AGOL account here. And so at the very top of the list under the content, you can add folders. And so you can see we have different folders because we like to put together an end of the year review, which has been really which has gone over really well with the public and our partners. They really love it. And so within each of these folders, we make sure that we keep things structurally organized to make sure that it's easier for those reviewing the documentation to go in there, look it over, and make sure they know exactly what needs to be turned on. So I recommend keeping your AGOL stuff very kind of structured and in folders to make sure that it's easier for those on the reviewing side. So within the trouble ticket, when you log in, your name is going to automatically pop up in there. You're going to have a drop-down menu for a lot of these different options, and you're going to click in this first one, the story map or app. And then within the next box, this is where you're going to list the title of your story map or the content that you want to be made public. So you're going to type it in there. Then within the next box, this is going to be where you copy and paste in the URL that you want to be made public. So make sure that if you have the story map, if you have a map, if you have other information, all of those URLs have to be within that little window here. Then this is pretty much you telling the reviewer, you've looked at the the requirements documentation, are all of the requirements met? Yes or no? Hopefully you're not selecting no, because you're just going to make it a little bit more difficult on yourself and the reviewing process. So please make sure you go through those reviewing documentations beforehand. So really you should, for the most part, always be clicking yes on this drop-down menu. Then you're going to describe the content. Also tell them where the map is located, where the items are located. If I'm submitting something from the Milwaukee account, I'll usually put in the content is in the NWS Milwaukee AGOL account, and it's located within this folder within our subdirectory. And then the cool part about this bottom part, if you're working on a project with somebody else, so for example, if Josh and I were going to submit the example he just made, I could add Josh's name here at the bottom. And so when I submit the ticket, then he also will get the updates on the ticket and any information that comes through. So it's a really great way to still maintain that collaborative process if you're working with others. So then after you fill out the ticket, it's under review. It gets assigned to somebody within the region who is tasked with reviewing these to make sure they're going to go through and make sure all the requirements are met. They're going to look at the grammar, the spelling. They're going to look over and make sure the proper credits are given. If you have pictures on there that don't have attributions, that might be a problem. So make sure you're giving the proper attributions and credits. They're going to look at the length and the complexity, and don't be surprised if they come back with some suggested edits. You know, they've looked at a lot of different story maps that our agency has put out, and they may have a few tips to pass along throughout the review process. So there will be some kind of back and forth within the review process before things get published publicly. But again, once you submit that ticket, everything is under review, and then it's a little bit of a waiting game until you get the either the approval or some further discussion on what may need to be tweaked. So really, I know we're kind of close to the end of time here. I wanted to bring up a list of different resources that are out there. There are, you know, we demonstrated one version of the story map, but there are a bunch of different options out there within the story map series, story map collections. So there's a lot of great ways to go about and look at data in the AGOL side of things and in the story map side of things. And so this is just a list. If you want to kind of go back and look at it later, pause it and write some of these down. Just wanted to provide a couple of different really helpful things from the Esri side of thing and the AGOL side of things as well. So with that, I know we're pretty short on time, but I wanted to thank you all for coming. Big thanks to Josh for doing that demonstration. It was awesome. If anything, it really kind of, you know, hopefully sparks the imagination for those offices who may have not kind of delved into the story map side of things. If you ever need help with things, there's a number of folks across the region who have worked on story maps, have some experience with the story maps. So of course you can reach out to Josh or I, but there's a bunch of different great resources from across the region if you have any questions or run into any issues when it comes to putting together the story map. So we hope you enjoyed the demonstration and learned a little something new about the AGOL side of things.